The brick exploded against the wall inches from my head as I sprinted across the rooftop. Father Harrison's cassock flapped behind him like a black flag as he leaped between buildings with the grace of someone half his age. For a 70-year-old priest, the bastard could move. "Stop running and we can talk about this," I shouted, vaulting over a ventilation unit. He spun around mid-stride and hurled a chunk of concrete at me. "Talk is finished, Blake." I ducked and kept running. 3 weeks of tracking this man through Rome's underground, following leads that led to more questions than answers, and now he was treating me like the enemy. The Vatican had hired me to find their missing exorcists, and Father Harrison was supposed to be one of the good ones. My boots hit the gravel as I landed on the next rooftop. Harrison was already climbing down a fire escape, moving fast toward the narrow alley below. I pulled out my phone and speed dialed. "Curtis, he's heading toward the Pantheon district. Cut him off at Via della Rotonda." "On it," Curtis's voice crackled through the speaker. My partner had been tracking church disappearances for 6 years before they brought me in. If anyone could corner a fleeing priest, it was him. I swung over the fire escape railing and dropped down 2 floors, landing hard on a dumpster. Harrison was already at street level, weaving through the evening crowd of tourists. He moved with purpose, not panic. That worried me more than if he'd been running scared. The narrow Roman streets worked against me. Too many people, too many places to hide. I pushed through a group of German tourists taking selfies and caught sight of Harrison turning left toward the old quarter. My earpiece buzzed. "Blake, I lost him. He never came down Via della Rotonda." "He must have changed direction," I said, pressing myself against a wall to scan the street. "Check the underground entrances, the Cloaca Maxima access points. You think he's going into the sewers? This guy knows Rome better than we do. He's been working here for 40 years. I spotted movement in a doorway across the street. A flash of black fabric disappearing into what looked like a closed shop. The faded sign above read, "Antiquita Religiose, Murphy." "Curtis, I think I found him. Religious antique shop on Via dei Cappuccini. Send backup, but stay back. I want to talk to him first." The shop door was unlocked. Bad sign. I stepped inside and immediately felt the temperature drop 10 degrees. Shelves lined the walls, packed with crucifixes, old prayer books, and statues of saints with missing faces. The smell hit me like a wall. Not the musty scent of old books, but something organic. Something rotting. "Father Harrison?" "I know you're in here." A voice came from the back room. "You should not have followed me, Blake Garrett." He knew my full name. The Vatican had told me this was a simple missing persons case. Track down 3 exorcists who had vanished over the past month. Bring them back safely. Standard fee plus expenses. They hadn't mentioned that the missing priests knew who I was. I moved toward the back of the shop, stepping carefully around displays of religious artifacts. A wooden Jesus on a crucifix watched me with painted eyes that seemed too lifelike in the dim light. "The church hired me to find you," I called out. "They're worried about you." "The church?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The church knows exactly where we are, Blake. The question is why they sent you to collect us." I pushed through a beaded curtain into the back room. Father Harrison stood behind a wooden table covered with books and papers. He'd removed his collar, and I could see marks on his neck. Not bruises, something else. Burn marks in a specific pattern. "What happened to you?" I asked. He picked up one of the books from the table. The leather cover was old, cracked, and bound with what looked like wire instead of thread. "Do you know what we really do, Blake? When we perform exorcisms, you help people who are possessed by demons." "No," he said, shaking his head. "We collect them." The temperature in the room dropped another few degrees. I could see my breath now, small puffs of white air. "Collect them?" "Every exorcism we perform, every demon we cast out, They don't disappear, they transfer into us. He opened the book and showed me pages covered in strange symbols and what looked like medical diagrams. The Vatican has been using exorcists as containers for over 300 years. I took a step closer. The burn marks on his neck were clearer now. They formed a pattern, like a brand. That's insane. Is it? How else do you think we can command them? How else do we have the authority to cast them out? He set the book down and rolled up his sleeves. More burn marks covered his arms, each one a different symbol. We carry them inside us, dormant, controlled. Until what? Until the Vatican decides we've served our purpose. The lights in the shop flickered, not the slow fade of dying bulbs, but rapid, rhythmic flashing, like a signal. "They're coming," Father Harrison said. "You led them right to me." I heard footsteps outside the shop, multiple people moving with military precision. Not Curtis, this was something else. "Who's coming?" I asked. "The collectors, the ones who empty us out when we get too full." He moved toward a door I hadn't noticed before, hidden behind a shelf of prayer books. "They've been taking us one by one. Father Murphy last month, Father Coleman 2 weeks ago, Dr. Patterson 5 days ago." "Where are they taking you?" "Underground, beneath the Vatican. There are chambers down there that predate Christianity, places where they can extract what we carry without killing us immediately." The footsteps were at the front door now. I heard the sound of metal tools working on the lock. "Come with me," I said. "We can get you out of here." "No," he said. "You still don't understand. I contacted you, Blake. Not the church. I hired you." The front door opened. I heard voices speaking in Latin, low and rhythmic like a chant. "You hired me, but the Vatican—" "Paid your fee, yes. I arranged that. I needed someone from outside the church, someone who could document what happens to us." He handed me the leather book and a small digital camera. "The evidence is all here. Names, dates, locations, proof of what they've been doing." "Why didn't you just go to the police?" "The media?" "Because half the Roman police are on church payroll, and the media won't touch anything involving Vatican conspiracy theories." The chanting was getting louder. "But a private investigator with a reputation for finding the truth, that's different." The beaded curtain rustled. 3 figures in black robes entered the back room. They moved in perfect synchronization, like they were controlled by the same mind. Each carried a metal case that hummed with electrical current. "Father Harrison," one of them spoke in accented English. "You have caused considerable trouble." "Do what you want with me," Harrison said. "But the investigator leaves. He's not part of this." The robed figure turned toward me. I couldn't see a face under the hood, just darkness where features should be. "Mr. Garrett has seen too much to simply leave." I backed toward the hidden door, clutching the book and camera. "I'm just doing a job, finding missing persons. I don't know anything about your church business." "You know enough to be a problem." One of the other figures opened its metal case. Inside were instruments that looked medical, but wrong somehow. Curved blades, syringes filled with black liquid, and something that resembled a metal crown with wires attached. "Run," Father Harrison said quietly. I ran. The hidden door led to a narrow staircase descending into darkness. I heard shouting behind me, then a sound I couldn't identify, like someone screaming through water. I didn't look back. The stairs went down farther than seemed possible. My phone's flashlight showed rough stone walls covered in symbols similar to the ones in Harrison's book. This wasn't part of the antique shop. This was much older. I reached the bottom and found myself in a tunnel. Not a sewer. The construction was too sophisticated. This looked Roman, maybe earlier. The symbols on the walls were carved deep into the stone and filled with what looked like dried blood. My phone rang. Curtis's number. "Where are you?" he asked. I heard shouting from the shop, but when I got here it was empty. Empty? What about the 3 guys in robes? What guys? Blake, there's nobody here, just you missing and blood on the floor. I looked around the tunnel. No footprints in the dust except my own. No sounds from above. Curtis, I need you to research something for me. Look up Dr. Patterson, Father Murphy, and Father Coleman, all Vatican exorcists who disappeared recently. I can do that. But first, where the hell are you? Underground somewhere. I found a hidden door in the back of the shop. There are tunnels down here. Tunnels? Blake, I'm looking at the back of the shop right now. There's no hidden door, just a solid wall. I turned around and shined my light back up the stairs. The door was gone. Just smooth stone wall. That's not possible, I said. What's not possible? Talk to me. I examined the wall more closely. No seams, no hinges, no sign there had ever been a door. But I had definitely come downstairs to get here. Curtis, run those names I gave you. Call me back with whatever you find, and check the Vatican employment records. I need to know if these priests ever actually existed. You're scaring me, partner. What's going on? I'm not sure yet, but I think I've been set up. I hung up and continued down the tunnel. The symbols on the walls were becoming more elaborate, covering every surface. My light caught something ahead, an opening into a larger space. The tunnel opened into a circular chamber with 7 passages leading off in different directions. In the center stood an altar made of black stone. On top of it sat a collection of objects: a priest's collar, a rosary, a pair of glasses, and 3 metal cases identical to the ones the robed figures had carried. Next to the altar was a table covered with paperwork. I approached carefully and examined the documents. Vatican letterhead, but the text was in Latin. I could make out a few words: extraction, containment, subject termination. At the bottom of the page was a signature I recognized. Cardinal Alessandro Harrison. Father Harrison's signature. But that made no... Wait. I checked the date on the document. It was signed 3 days ago. 3 days after Father Harrison had supposedly gone missing. My phone buzzed with a text from Curtis. All 3 priests you mentioned died over 50 years ago. No current Vatican employees by those names. I stared at the signature again. The handwriting was identical to notes I'd seen Father Harrison make during our chase. But if he'd been dead for 50 years, who had I been chasing across the rooftops? Another text from Curtis. Also check the antique shop. Owner says nobody matching Father Harrison's description has ever been inside. I photographed the documents with the camera Harrison had given me, then examined the metal cases on the altar. Each one was labeled with a name and date. Murphy, March 15th. Coleman, March 28th. Patterson, April 2nd. Inside each case were the same medical instruments I'd seen upstairs, but these were clean, unused, brand new. A sound echoed from one of the 7 tunnels, footsteps getting closer. But not the synchronized movement of the robed figures. These were different, lighter, multiple sets, moving at different speeds. 3 figures emerged from the tunnel directly across from where I stood. They wore modern clothes, not robes. A middle-aged man with wire-rimmed glasses, a younger priest with burn scars on his hands, and an elderly man in a doctor's coat. Dr. Patterson, I presume, I said, recognizing him from Vatican files Curtis had shown me earlier, along with Father Murphy and Father Coleman. Mr. Garrett, Dr. Patterson said, we've been waiting for you. Waiting for me? You hired me to find you. Not exactly, Father Coleman said. We hired you to document our deaths. Your deaths? You're standing right here. Are we? Father Murphy removed his glasses and set them on the altar next to the identical pair already there. Look more closely, Blake. I raised the camera and activated the flash. In the brief, bright light, I saw them clearly for the first time. Their clothes were rotted, hanging in strips. Their skin was gray, mottled with patches of decay. Father Murphy's glasses sat over empty eye sockets. But when the flash faded and my vision adjusted to the dim light again, they appeared normal. "We've been dead for 3 weeks," Dr. Patterson explained. "Our bodies are in the Vatican morgue, but our spirits are trapped here, bound to this place by the same forces we once contained." "What forces?" "Not demons," Father Murphy corrected. "Something worse. The Vatican has been lying about what we do, what we really extract from people." Dr. Patterson stepped closer. "The Church calls them possessions, but they're actually infestations of human consciousness. Memories, experiences, entire personalities from people who died in extreme trauma. They attach to living hosts, trying to complete unfinished business. So you extract traumatic memories?" "We extract entire human souls," Father Coleman said. "Souls that were supposed to pass on, but got stuck. The Vatican has been collecting them for centuries, storing them, using them." "Using them for what?" "Information," Dr. Patterson said. "A soul that lived through the Crusades has tactical knowledge. A soul from the Renaissance knows art techniques lost to history. A soul from World War II remembers classified military secrets. The Vatican has been building a database of human knowledge spanning 1,000 years, Father Murphy added. And we were the extraction tools." I looked around the chamber. "So, this place is what? A storage facility?" "This is where they bring us when we get too full. When we've absorbed too many souls and start losing our own identity." Father Coleman gestured toward the 7 tunnels. "Each passage leads to different time periods. Roman souls in one tunnel, medieval souls in another." "But you escaped." "We didn't escape," Dr. Patterson said. "We were murdered. The extraction process went wrong, or maybe it went exactly as planned. Our bodies died, but our souls got caught in the same web that traps all the others." "So Father Harrison upstairs is also dead. Has been for 2 months. But his soul is still carrying out his final mission, to expose what the Vatican is doing down here." My phone buzzed. Curtis calling. "Blake, where are you? I've got 3 unmarked vans pulling up to the antique shop. Armed guys in tactical gear." "Stay back," I said. "Don't let them see you." "Too late. They're heading for the building next to yours. Looks like they're setting up some kind of perimeter." I hung up and turned to the 3 dead priests. "They found us." "Good," Dr. Patterson said. "That means we can finish this." "Finish what?" Father Murphy picked up one of the metal cases from the altar. "These aren't extraction tools, they're transfer devices. The Vatican doesn't just store souls, they move them into new hosts." New hosts. Vatican officials, cardinals, bishops, even the Pope himself. They transfer centuries of accumulated knowledge directly into the minds of church leaders. That's how the Vatican stays ahead of governments, how they know things before they happen. The robed figures I saw upstairs, they weren't there to extract souls from you. They were there to extract information from the souls you carry, then transfer that knowledge to someone higher up the chain. Exactly. And once they have what they need, they dispose of the host. That's us. Dr. Patterson opened the case he was holding. Inside, instead of medical instruments, were dozens of small glass vials, filled with what looked like liquid light. Each vial pulsed with its own rhythm, like a heartbeat. "These are souls," he said. "Hundreds of them. All the knowledge the Vatican has been collecting. What are you going to do with them?" "Set them free. But first we need to document everything. That's why we hired you." I held up the camera. "I've been taking pictures. Pictures won't be enough. We need you to get this information to the outside world. But more than that, we need you to expose the current operation." "Current operation?" Father Coleman pointed toward one of the tunnels. "They're not just storing old souls anymore. They're creating new ones, specifically targeting people with useful knowledge. Scientists, military leaders, politicians. They're murdering people? They're causing the right kind of trauma to create the right kind of soul attachment. Car accidents that look random. Heart attacks that seem natural. Suicides that appear voluntary. Dr. Patterson closed the case. Then they send in extraction teams to collect the newly formed souls before they can pass on. How many people are we talking about? In the last year, over 300. Father Murphy walked toward one of the tunnels. The souls are kept in chambers down there while the Vatican decides who gets which knowledge. And you want me to stop this? How exactly? I'm one guy with a camera. You're going to help us release every soul they have stored, all at once. The energy discharge will be visible from orbit, hard to cover up or explain away. What happens to the souls when they're released? They do what they should have done in the first place. They move on. And what happens to you three? Dr. Patterson smiled. We finally get to rest. I heard sounds from above. Heavy footsteps, multiple voices, equipment being moved. They're in the shop. Then we need to move fast. Father Coleman walked to the center of the chamber where 7 metal plates were embedded in the floor. Blake, I need you to place one of the soul containers on each plate. I opened the case and started placing the glowing vials around the chamber. As soon as each vial touched a metal plate, the symbols on the walls began to glow with the same pulsing light. What's happening? You're opening the containment network, Dr. Patterson said. Every soul they've stored for the past 3 centuries is about to be released simultaneously. The temperature in the chamber dropped 20 degrees. I could see my breath now, and the light from the vials was getting brighter. How do I get out of here? The same way you got in, but first, you need to document the release. Father Murphy handed me a second camera. Video this time. The world needs to see what happens when 1,000 trapped souls are set free. Voices echoed from the tunnel I'd entered through. They'd found the entrance. Hurry, Father Coleman said. Once the process starts, it can't be stopped. I placed the final vial on its metal plate. The entire chamber exploded with light. Not harsh white light, but warm, golden illumination that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The symbols on the walls were now bright enough to read clearly, and I could see they weren't Latin or any language I recognized. Blake. Curtis's voice came through my earpiece. I'm seeing lights coming from underground. What the hell is going on down there? Document everything you can see from up there, I said, raising the video camera. This is going to be big. The 7 tunnels were now glowing with the same golden light, and I could hear sounds coming from each one. Not voices, but something else. Like wind, but with intention behind it. They're leaving, Dr. Patterson said. All of them. Through the video camera's viewfinder, I could see things that weren't visible to my naked eye. Translucent figures emerging from the tunnels, hundreds of them, moving toward the chamber ceiling and then beyond. Men and women in clothing from different time periods, all walking purposefully toward something I couldn't see. This is incredible, I said, still filming. And it's just the beginning, Father Murphy said. Every soul they release weakens the Vatican's information network. By tomorrow, they'll have lost centuries of accumulated knowledge. The footsteps in my tunnel were getting closer. I could see flashlight beams cutting through the golden glow. Time to go, Father Coleman said. But first, take this. He handed me a leather journal. Names, dates, locations of every extraction operation for the past 50 years. Everything you need to prove what they've been doing. What about you guys? Look around, Dr. Patterson said. I looked through the camera viewfinder again. The 3 priests were becoming translucent, like the other souls leaving through the tunnels. But they weren't moving toward the ceiling. They were standing still, fading slowly. You're leaving too? We're choosing to, Father Murphy said. We've been carrying other people's souls for so long, we almost forgot our own. This is our chance to remember who we were before the Vatican turned us into containers. Blake Garrett, a voice called from the tunnel. Vatican security, you're surrounded. I started moving toward the tunnel opposite the one I'd entered through, still filming. The golden light was starting to fade, but I could still see souls streaming upward through the stone ceiling. Go, Father Coleman said. Tell the world what you've seen. I ran into the tunnel, following the fading light. Behind me, I heard voices in the chamber, shouting in multiple languages. None of them sounded happy. The tunnel sloped upward, and after 5 minutes of running, I saw actual daylight ahead. I emerged through what looked like a sewer grate into an alley behind the Pantheon. Curtis was waiting for me with our van. Get in, he said. We need to move. The whole district is lighting up with some kind of electromagnetic disturbance. Every piece of electronic equipment within a mile just went crazy. I jumped into the passenger seat, still holding both cameras and the leather journal. Drive. Get us to the hotel. What happened down there? I'll explain when we get somewhere safe. But first, we need to upload everything I just recorded. As Curtis drove through Rome's narrow streets, I looked back toward the Vatican. A column of golden light was rising from the city, reaching up into the evening sky like a beacon. It was visible for miles, and already I could see people stopping on the streets to point and take pictures. That's not normal, is it? Curtis asked. No, I said, checking the video camera. But it's exactly what needed to happen. We reached our hotel and Curtis parked in the underground garage. I was still shaking from everything I'd seen, but I knew we needed to act fast. The Vatican would be scrambling to contain this, and they had resources I couldn't compete with. Curtis, I need you to call every contact we have. News outlets, government agencies, anyone who might be interested in a story about Vatican conspiracy and murder. What am I telling them? That we have video proof of crimes against humanity going back centuries, and that as of tonight, it's all over. I opened the leather journal and started reading while Curtis made calls. The entries went back decades. Names of people who'd been targeted for extraction. Dates when operations were carried out. Locations of other facilities like the one I'd just escaped from. But there was something else in the journal. Recent entries that made my blood run cold. A list of names with tomorrow's date next to them. People scheduled for extraction in the next 24 hours. The first name on the list was Curtis Williams. My partner was still on the phone with a reporter, explaining what we'd discovered. He had no idea that according to this journal, he was supposed to die tomorrow in what would look like a random car accident. The second name was Blake Garrett. I was scheduled to die 3 hours after Curtis. Heart attack, age 32, no prior medical history. The Vatican wasn't just covering up their past crimes. They were planning to eliminate the witnesses who could expose them. I looked at Curtis, still talking excitedly about the story we were about to break. He deserved to know what was coming. But if I told him, would that change anything? Or would the Vatican just adjust their timeline? My phone rang. Unknown international number. Mr. Garrett, this is Cardinal Alessandro Harrison. I recognized the voice. The same Father Harrison I'd chased across rooftops, but speaking with authority now. Official authority. We need to discuss what you've seen tonight. I think the world needs to discuss what I've seen tonight. You don't understand the consequences of releasing that information. I understand that you've been murdering people and stealing their souls for centuries. I think that's worth discussing. Those souls were being put to good use. The knowledge they carried has prevented wars, solved famines, advanced human understanding in ways you can't imagine. By torturing dead people and killing live ones? By using resources that would otherwise be wasted. Do you think souls just disappear when people die? They linger, confused and in pain. We were helping them serve a purpose. Curtis finished his call and looked at me with concern. I showed him the journal, pointing to our names on tomorrow's death list. Mr. Garrett, you have no idea what you've done. Those souls weren't just carrying knowledge. They were carrying warnings, information about future threats that only the dead can see. What kind of threats? The kind that require centuries of accumulated wisdom to prevent. Wars that haven't started yet. Plagues that haven't been discovered. Technologies that could destroy humanity if they fall into the wrong hands. Curtis was reading the journal now, his face growing pale as he saw the scope of the Vatican's operations. So you're saying the Vatican was protecting humanity by enslaving the dead? I'm saying the Vatican was preparing for threats that the living couldn't understand. Now that preparation is gone. Those souls aren't just free, they're angry, and they remember everything we did to them. Sounds like you have bigger problems than me, Cardinal. We all do, Mr. Garrett. What you've released tonight isn't just souls seeking peace. Some of those souls have been carrying grudges for hundreds of years. Grudges against the church, against humanity, against the living world itself. Curtis tapped my shoulder and pointed to the hotel room window. Outside, Rome was beginning to glow again. But this time the light wasn't golden. It was red, and it was spreading across the city like fire. Then maybe you shouldn't have been torturing them, I said. Maybe. But now we'll all find out what happens when the dead decide they want revenge. The line went dead. Curtis looked at me with wide eyes. Blake, look at the news. He turned on the television. Every channel was showing the same thing. Reports of unexplained phenomena in major cities around the world. Lights in the sky, electronic failures, and people claiming to see figures in historical clothing walking through solid walls. But it wasn't just sightings. In London, 3 Vatican officials had been found dead in their hotel room, apparently aged to death in minutes. In Paris, a cardinal had been discovered in his office, his body drained of blood but with no wounds. In New York, an entire Vatican delegation had vanished from their conference room, leaving behind only their clothes and the smell of sulfur. It's happening everywhere, Curtis said. Whatever you released, it's not just staying in Rome. I looked at the journal again. The death list wasn't just for Curtis and me. There were hundreds of names, spanning multiple countries. Vatican critics, investigative journalists, government officials who'd been asking too many questions about church finances. Curtis, we need to get out of here. Tonight. Where are we going? Somewhere the Vatican can't reach us, and we need to make sure this story gets out before they can silence everyone who knows about it. I started uploading the video files to every cloud storage service I could think of. If the Vatican was planning to eliminate witnesses, I wanted to make sure the evidence survived even if we didn't. But as I worked, I couldn't shake the feeling that Cardinal Harrison had been telling the truth about one thing. The souls I'd released weren't just seeking freedom. They were seeking justice. And after centuries of imprisonment and torture, their idea of justice might be more extreme than anything the living world was prepared for. Outside our window, the red glow was getting brighter. And in that glow, I could see shapes moving. Hundreds of them, walking through the streets of Rome with purpose and determination. The dead had risen, and they remembered everything. The hotel shook like an earthquake was hitting it. Curtis grabbed the window frame to steady himself while I kept uploading files to the cloud. Outside, the red glow had spread across half of Rome, and I could hear sirens wailing from every direction. Blake, we need to go now, Curtis said. Look at this. He pointed to the street below. 3 black SUVs had pulled up in front of the hotel. Men in tactical gear were getting out, moving toward the entrance with military efficiency. Vatican security? I asked. Worse. Look at their equipment. Through the hotel window, I could see the men were carrying the same metal cases I'd seen in the underground chamber. The humming electrical cases with medical instruments inside. They're not here to arrest us, I said. They're here to extract us. I grabbed the cameras and journal while Curtis packed our gear. We had maybe 5 minutes before they reached our floor. Fire escape? Curtis suggested. They'll have it covered. We need a different way out. I looked around the hotel room, thinking fast. We were on the 7th floor, too high to jump. The elevator would be suicide. But this was an old Roman hotel, which meant… The laundry chute, I said, pointing to a small door in the wall I'd noticed earlier. Are you insane? That's a 7-story drop. It's our only option, unless you want to stick around and see what those extraction tools feel like. Curtis looked out the window again. The tactical team was entering the hotel lobby. Fine, but if we die, I'm haunting you. I opened the laundry chute door. It was narrow, barely wide enough for a person, but it led straight down to the basement laundry room. More importantly, it would get us past the Vatican team. I'll go first, I said, stuffing the cameras and journal into my jacket. Give me 30 seconds, then follow. I squeezed into the chute and let gravity take over. The ride down was faster and more painful than I'd expected. I hit laundry bins, bounced off walls, and finally crashed into a pile of dirty sheets in the basement. Curtis landed on top of me a few seconds later, cursing in 3 languages. Never again, he said, pulling himself out of the laundry pile. Agreed. Now we need to find a way out of here that doesn't involve the front lobby. The hotel basement was a maze of storage rooms and maintenance areas. We followed signs toward the service exit, moving as quietly as possible. Behind us, I could hear heavy footsteps and voices speaking in Latin. We reached a metal door marked Servizio and pushed through into an alley behind the hotel. The air outside felt electric, like the moments before a lightning storm. The red glow was everywhere now, casting strange reflections off the old Roman buildings. Car? Curtis asked. No point. Look at the streets. The narrow Roman roads were packed with abandoned vehicles. Drivers had simply left their cars and fled on foot, apparently afraid of whatever they were seeing in the red light. But we weren't alone in the alley. A figure stood at the far end, blocking our escape route. It wore a Roman centurion's armor and carried a gladius sword. The metal gleamed despite being 2,000 years old. Friend of yours? Curtis whispered. I don't think he's here to help us. The centurion started walking toward us, his armor clanking with each step. His face was visible through his helmet, but it wasn't the face of a living man. It was dried leather stretched over bone, with burning coals where eyes should be. Different route, I said. We ran back toward the hotel, but 3 more figures blocked that path. These wore medieval clothing and carried weapons from the Crusades. All of them had the same burning eyes, the same dried leather skin. Blake, Curtis said quietly. I think we're surrounded. More figures emerged from doorways and side alleys. Warriors from different time periods, all carrying weapons, all moving toward us with deadly intent. But they weren't looking at us like we were targets. They were looking at us like we were obstacles in their way to something more important. The hotel, I said. They're going after the Vatican team. The centurion walked past us without a glance, followed by the medieval warriors. They entered the hotel through the service door we just exited. Immediately, I heard screaming from inside. Not the quick screams of surprise, but the long, agonized screams of people experiencing something worse than death. We should go, Curtis said. Wait. I pulled out the video camera and started recording. The world needs to see this. Through the hotel windows, I could see flashes of light and movement. The Vatican's tactical team was trying to fight back, but their modern weapons seemed useless against enemies who were already dead. One of the Vatican soldiers came crashing through a window on the 3rd floor, his body twisted at angles that shouldn't be possible. He hit the pavement with a wet sound and didn't move. Okay, now we go, I said. We ran through the empty streets, heading away from the hotel and toward the main tourist district. Maybe if we could get lost in a crowd, we'd have a better chance of survival. But the tourist areas were just as empty as everywhere else. Rome had become a ghost town, with only the actual ghosts still walking around. My phone rang. Curtis again. "Curtis, you're right next to me." "That's not my phone," he said. I looked at the caller ID. It showed Curtis Williams, but Curtis was standing beside me, not calling. I answered the phone. "Hello? Blake, where are you?" It was Curtis's voice, but not coming from the Curtis next to me. "Who is this?" "It's Curtis. I'm at the hotel. Some guys in black gear grabbed you about 10 minutes ago. Where did they take you?" I looked at the real Curtis beside me. "What's going on?" The voice on the phone continued. "Blake, answer me. Are you hurt? Did they inject you with something?" I hung up and immediately called Curtis's number. His phone rang right next to me. "Blake," the real Curtis said. "Who was that?" "Someone who thinks he's you. Someone who thinks I was captured 10 minutes ago. But we've been together the whole time." I thought about the underground chamber, about the souls I'd released, about the Vatican's centuries of soul collection. Curtis, what if some of those souls didn't just pass on? What if some of them stayed here, in our world, trying to live the lives they never got to finish? You think that was the spirit of some dead guy who thinks he's me? I think we released a lot more than just trapped knowledge. We released people who've been dead for years, but still remember being alive. My phone buzzed with a text message from Curtis's number. "Hotel basement. Vatican team has extraction equipment set up. They're doing something to you. I can hear you screaming." Another text. "Blake, they're putting something in your head. Some kind of metal crown with wires. You need to fight them." I showed the messages to Curtis. This is what the Vatican team thought was going to happen. They came to extract us, but instead they found confused souls who think they're living our lives. So somewhere in Rome, there's a dead guy who thinks he's me, trying to rescue a dead guy who thinks he's you. While the real Vatican team is probably being torn apart by ancient Roman soldiers. Curtis looked around at the empty streets. This is getting complicated. It's about to get worse. Look. In the distance, I could see lights approaching. Not the red glow of angry souls, but the white lights of vehicles. A convoy of Vatican cars was heading toward us, driving fast through the abandoned streets. "They sent backup," Curtis said. "Or these are the real extraction teams, the ones who were supposed to kill us tomorrow." We ducked into a narrow alley between two old buildings. The convoy passed by without stopping, heading toward the hotel district. But I knew they'd be back. The Vatican wasn't going to give up just because some dead Romans had killed their first team. "Curtis, we need to get out of Rome, tonight." "How?" "The airports are probably shut down, and every road out of the city will be watched." I thought about the leather journal in my jacket, the one Father Coleman had given me. It contained more than just evidence of Vatican crimes. It had locations of other facilities, other operations. "There's a place north of here, a monastery where they store some of the extracted souls. If we can get there, we might find allies." "Allies? More dead priests who want revenge." Curtis sighed. 6 months ago, my biggest worry was whether our expense reports would get approved. Now, I'm planning to recruit an army of angry ghosts. Welcome to the supernatural investigation business. We worked our way through the back alleys, staying away from main streets. The red glow was fading now, replaced by normal darkness. But I could still see figures moving in the distance. Some looked like ancient warriors, others like ordinary people in modern clothes. The line between the living and the dead was getting blurrier by the hour. It took us 2 hours to reach the outskirts of Rome. We found an abandoned car with keys still in the ignition, another victim of the night's panic, and started driving north. "Blake," Curtis said as we drove through the countryside, "what happens when this is over?" "Assuming we survive, I mean. We expose everything. Every name in that journal, every location, every crime. We make sure the Vatican can never do this again." "And the souls that are still loose? The angry ones?" I thought about that. "I don't know. Maybe they'll get their revenge and move on. Maybe they'll find peace now that the truth is coming out. Or maybe they'll decide all living people are guilty by association. That was the possibility I didn't want to think about. But Curtis was right to worry. We'd released centuries of tortured souls, and not all of them were going to be satisfied with just punishing the Vatican. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Rome declares state of emergency. Military moving to establish perimeter around city. Reports of mass hallucinations and electronic failures spreading globally. Another alert. Vatican spokesperson denies involvement in unexplained phenomena. Claims reports of supernatural activity are result of coordinated misinformation campaign. They're trying to spin this, Curtis said. Won't work. Too many people saw the lights. Too many videos are already online. But as we drove through the dark countryside, I wondered if the Vatican's spin might actually be the least of our problems. Because according to the news alerts, the phenomena weren't staying in Rome. They were spreading. Reports from London, Paris, New York, Tokyo, all describing the same things. Unexplained lights, electronic failures, and sightings of people in historical clothing who vanished when approached. The souls I'd released weren't just local to Rome. They were going global, seeking out Vatican operations and personnel worldwide. Which meant the revenge was just beginning. We reached the monastery 2 hours before dawn. It was older than Rome itself, built into the side of a mountain and surrounded by walls that had stood for over 1,000 years. But something was wrong. The gates were open. No lights were on inside. And there were vehicles in the courtyard, modern SUVs with Vatican license plates. Extraction team? Curtis asked. Or cleanup crew. They might be trying to secure this facility before the souls find it. We parked a quarter-mile away and approached on foot. The monastery was eerily quiet, but I could see movement inside the buildings. Flashlight beams cutting through the darkness, voices calling out in Latin. "Blake," Curtis whispered. "Look at the courtyard." In the center of the monastery's main courtyard was a pile of metal cases, dozens of them, all cracked open and empty. The soul containers had been broken, their contents released. But by who? The Vatican team or something else? We climbed over the monastery wall and moved toward the main building. Through the windows, I could see robed figures moving around inside. But these weren't the same extraction teams I'd encountered in Rome. These were monks. Real, living monks. And they were destroying everything. "They're burning documents," Curtis said, pointing to a bonfire in the monastery's central chamber. "And smashing equipment," I added, watching one monk take a hammer to what looked like a soul transfer device. We circled around to a side entrance and slipped inside. The monks were too busy with their destruction to notice us. I could hear one of them speaking in accented English. "Burn it all, Brother Williams. Every record, every piece of equipment. The church will claim this place was always a simple monastery." Brother Williams. I looked at Curtis, who shrugged. Apparently Williams was a more common name than I'd thought. "What about the souls that were stored here?" another monk asked. "Released an hour ago. They're free to go where they choose." "And the Vatican officials who were running this operation? They won't be running anything anymore." I pulled out the video camera and started recording. This was exactly the kind of evidence we needed. Vatican personnel admitting to the operation and trying to cover it up. But as I filmed, I noticed something else. The monks weren't just destroying evidence. They were also setting up new equipment. Devices I didn't recognize, but which hummed with the same electrical energy as the soul containers. "Curtis," I whispered. "I don't think these are normal monks." One of the monks turned toward our hiding spot. His face was visible in the firelight, and I could see the same burn marks on his neck that Father Harrison had carried. "Mr. Garrett," he said calmly, "we've been expecting you." So much for stealth. Curtis and I stepped out of the alcove where we'd been hiding. "You're extraction hosts," I said. "Like the others." "Former extraction hosts," the monk corrected. "We died 3 days ago when the Vatican decided our usefulness had ended. But unlike our colleagues in Rome, we chose not to seek immediate revenge." "What did you choose instead?" "To finish the job you started, to make sure every soul they've collected over the centuries gets released." He gestured toward the new equipment they'd been setting up. "These devices can locate and open soul containers anywhere in the world. Every Vatican facility, every hidden chamber, every secret operation. Why are you helping us?" "Because you gave us the chance to choose our own fate instead of having it chosen for us, and because the Vatican's operation is bigger than what you discovered in Rome." Brother Williams stepped forward. "They have facilities on every continent. Thousands of souls stored in chambers beneath cathedrals, monasteries, and Vatican embassies. Most of those souls don't even know they're dead." "What do you mean?" "The Vatican has been improving their techniques. The newer extraction methods leave the soul intact, but unaware. They experience a kind of dream state where they think they're still alive, still living their normal lives. Meanwhile, their knowledge and memories are being harvested continuously." Curtis looked sick. "How many people?" "In the last decade, nearly 10,000. Scientists, military leaders, politicians, artists, anyone with knowledge the Vatican considers valuable." "And they're all still trapped?" "Until tonight. The devices we're setting up will send a signal to every Vatican facility worldwide. Every soul container will open simultaneously." I looked around the monastery. "What happens to you when this is over?" "We move on," Brother Williams said simply. "We've completed our mission. We can finally rest." "And the souls you're releasing? What about them?" "That's up to them. Some will seek revenge, some will seek justice, some will simply want to go home. But they'll have the choice." I thought about the angry spirits I'd seen in Rome, the ancient warriors seeking vengeance. Some of them might choose to hurt innocent people. "Some might," the monk admitted. "But keeping them enslaved to prevent that possibility is wrong. Freedom includes the freedom to make bad choices." The equipment they'd set up began to hum more loudly. Lights appeared on control panels, and displays showed maps of the world with hundreds of blinking dots. "Vatican facilities," Brother Williams explained. "Each dot represents a soul storage location. When we activate this signal, they'll all open at once." "How long do we have?" "The signal activates at sunrise, about 30 minutes. Curtis looked at his watch. 30 minutes until 10,000 angry souls are released worldwide. 30 minutes until 10,000 enslaved souls are given the choice to be free. I raised the video camera one more time. "I need you to explain this on camera. The world needs to understand what's happening and why." For the next 20 minutes, the monks detailed the full scope of the Vatican's operation. Names, locations, methods, everything. They spoke calmly and clearly, making sure every detail was captured. As the sun began to rise over the mountains, they activated their device. The effect was immediate. Every screen in the monastery lit up, showing soul containers opening around the world. London, New York, Tokyo, Sydney, Cairo. Thousands of lights appearing in the sky as trapped souls were finally released. But something else happened too. My phone started ringing with calls from Curtis's number. Not just one call, but dozens. All from different versions of Curtis who thought they were still alive, still living their normal lives. "Blake," Curtis said, looking at his own phone, which was also ringing constantly. "I think we're about to have a very confusing few days." The monks were fading now, becoming translucent as their mission was completed. Brother Williams gave us one final piece of advice. "Document everything. Make sure the world knows the truth. And remember, the souls you've freed aren't monsters. They're people who were stolen from their rightful rest. Treat them with the respect they deserved in life." The monastery fell silent as the last of the monks disappeared. Curtis and I were alone with enough video evidence to bring down the Vatican's entire operation. But we were also alone in a world where 10,000 confused souls were trying to figure out why they'd been dreaming for years and whether the people they thought were their friends and family were real or not. My phone buzzed with a text from one of the Curtis numbers. "Blake, why do I remember dying 3 days ago? And why are there 5 other people who look exactly like me standing in this hotel room?" I showed the message to the real Curtis. "Any suggestions for how to handle this?" "Coffee," he said. "Lots of coffee. And maybe we should write a handbook for people who discovered they've been dead for years." "Good idea. We can call it So You're Actually Dead, a survivor's guide to supernatural identity crisis." As we drove back toward Rome, the sun rose on a world that would never be the same. The Vatican's secret was exposed, their victims were free, and justice was finally being served. But justice, I was learning, was a lot more complicated when it involved the supernatural, and a lot messier when it happened all at once on a global scale. Still, as I watched the sunrise and listened to my phone ringing with calls from confused souls trying to understand their situation, I knew we'd done the right thing. The dead deserved their freedom, even if that freedom came with chaos. And the living deserved to know the truth, even if that truth was stranger than anyone could have imagined. Father Harrison, Father Murphy, Father Coleman, and Dr. Patterson had gotten their justice. The Vatican's soul trafficking operation was finished. Now we just had to help 10,000 newly freed souls figure out what to do with their second chance at existence. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, we had a story to tell and evidence to share. Today, we were going to make sure the world knew exactly what the Vatican had been doing in the basement chambers beneath Rome. And tomorrow? Tomorrow we'd deal with whatever came next when the dead decided they wanted to rejoin the world of the living. But at least it would be their choice.